The sun rises over the historic Franklin battlefield in Tennessee, casting a golden light through the morning mist. A vintage Civil War map reveals the critical Western theater states, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. The fog lingers in the Chickamauga forest, shrouding the tall trees with heavy morning haze. Dawn breaks over the tranquil waters of the Shiloh riverbank, enveloped in soft fog. The Stones River battlefield lies cold and quiet, wrapped in the muted tones of winter. Here stands Clara Barton in authentic Civil War attire, her image softened by the light of the era. We see Sarah Edmonds disguised in Union uniform as Franklin Thompson, her expression steady and determined. Susie King Taylor is depicted in her period-accurate clothing, illuminated by a gentle warm light. William Carney is shown bearing the United States flag, dressed in the esteemed uniform of the 54th Massachusetts. The video showcases shirts from Franklin, Chickamauga, Shiloh, and Stones River, presented on a neutral backdrop with smooth lighting. The Franklin battlefield is once again revealed at dusk, with the sky gradually surrendering. Clara Barton didn't stand with rifles. She stood with resolve that reshaped Civil War history. At Antietam, Fredericksburg, and the Carolinas, she moved through fire and smoke to pull wounded Civil War soldiers from places even officers feared to approach. Civil War generals respected her in a way rare for the era, because she did what entire medical teams struggled to accomplish. She carried water, bandages, comfort, and the belief that no man should be left on a Civil War battlefield alone. Her courage didn't come from rank, it came from purpose. And long before the Red Cross existed, Clara Barton earned her title, Angel of the Battlefield. Followed to honor the next life shaped by the war. The woods at Chickamauga kept their secrets. A soldier once said you could hear fighting, but never see who stood 20 feet away. In that tangled forest, Civil War history shifted without warning. Regiments vanishing into smoke, officers calling to men they couldn't find. Lines didn't break here, they dissolved. On these Civil War battlefields, the Union Army fought blind, while Confederate movements struck from angles no Civil War soldier could anticipate. Even Civil War generals struggled to read the ground, the sound, the direction. The battlefield itself became the enemy. When the sun set, the forest held more questions than answers, and Chickamauga carved its name into the war as one of its most chaotic turning points. Follow to walk the next field with me. Not every Civil War soldier wore a uniform that matched their name. Sarah Edmonds did what few dared. She stepped into the war disguised as Franklin Thompson, determined to serve when she was never expected to. In the chaos of Civil War history, she carried messages, tended the wounded, and moved across Civil War battlefields unnoticed. Her courage wasn't loud, it was steady. Even when illness forced her away, she revealed the truth with hesitation, not fear. Civil War generals later honored her as one of the war's most unusual volunteers, proof that determination sometimes hides behind a borrowed name. Follow for the next hidden life history almost forgot. Before the thunder rolled at Shiloh, the fields were so quiet soldiers said they could hear the river breathe. No one expected a meeting here. Not like this, not this fast. The Civil War history of the Western theater changed in minutes as lines stumbled into each other at dawn. On these Civil War battlefields, confusion replaced strategy. Civil War soldiers fought without knowing where the next burst of sound would come from. Generals tried to regain order, but Shiloh swallowed plans whole. This moment became the warning every commander remembered. The war would now move with a speed no one could predict. Follow to walk the next field with me. Most stories of the Civil War soldier come from the battlefield. Hers came from the courage behind it. Susie King Taylor stepped into history not with a musket, but with knowledge that shaped lives in ways few talk about. Born into bondage, she escaped, joined the Union forces, and became the first Black Army nurse in Civil War history. She taught soldiers to read by campfire, treated the wounded, and stood beside the first South Carolina volunteers long before their names claimed space in the records. Civil War generals noted her discipline, but the men remembered her strength, the kind that didn't need rank. On every Civil War battlefield she walked, Susie proved that courage wasn't limited to those in uniform. Follow to learn about the next forgotten voice of the war. Later learned that small pieces of information, a route, a delay, a misplaced order, could turn a Civil War battlefield into a different story by nightfall. Some say this courier passed through camps so naturally that officers greeted them without question. Others claim the messages they carried redirected whole divisions. History leaves the name missing, but the impact remains. Follow for more mysteries hidden between the The fields around Stone River held a silence no soldier trusted. Cold rain, frozen ground, and a line stretched thin enough to break under its own weight. Civil War history remembers this meeting as one of the most uncertain openings of the entire conflict. When dawn broke on December 31st, both armies fought in conditions that turned every step into a gamble. Civil War soldier accounts describe the ground shaking, not from thunder, but from decisions made in moments that determined who held the Western theater. And as night fell, neither side claimed a clear victory, but Civil War generals knew the truth. Momentum had shifted. Stone River became the field where resolve meant more than numbers. Follow to walk the next ground with me. Some heroes earned medals. William Carney earned a place in history before anyone called his act by its name. In 1863, during the storming of Fort Wagner, Carney rose from the ranks of the 54th Massachusetts, one of the first African-American regiments in the Civil War, to carry the nation's symbol when its defenders were falling. Musket fire tore across the sand. Chaos swallowed the line. No one ordered him. No one asked. Carney lifted the United States flag and moved forward. Wounded again and again, he never let it fall, crawling, climbing, pushing toward the rampart. When he finally returned to Union lines, battered and bleeding, he said only one sentence: "Boys, I only did my duty." The flag never touched the ground. His courage redefined what service meant. His act reshaped Civil War history. And decades later, William Carney became the first African American awarded the Medal of Honor. Some Civil War soldiers fought for victory. William Carney fought for a promise. Follow to meet the next figure with me. What if Stonewall Jackson lived some moments in Civil War history feel like the ground itself held its breath? And none is heavier than this question: What if Stonewall Jackson had lived past Chancellorsville? One decision, one night, and the entire path of the war bent in a direction no Civil War soldier could predict. Jackson's speed, his surprise marches, his ability to read a battlefield, these were advantages the Confederacy never fully rebuilt. Civil War generals on both sides understood his presence changed timing, momentum, confidence, everything. If he had returned to command, would Gettysburg have unfolded the same way? Would the Army of Northern Virginia have moved with the same precision? Would those 3 days in Pennsylvania even look familiar to us now? History gives us facts, but the what if reminds us how fragile every turning point truly was on Civil War battlefields. Follow to step into the next mystery with me. The ground at Franklin never forgets. Some say the air still carries the weight of what happened here, a Civil War soldier line holding against a storm no one expected. When night fell on November 30th, 1864, the Western Theater changed forever. This wasn't just a meeting of armies. It was the moment Civil War history bent under decisions made in seconds. Generals watched entire divisions vanish into the smoke, and the Civil War battlefields of Tennessee became a turning point no plan could reverse. The men who stood their ground here weren't names in a book. They were farmers, clerks, sons, every Civil War soldier fighting under officers who knew what waited in the dark. And when the sun rose over the Harpeth River, Franklin carved itself into Civil War generals' accounts as the moment courage outran reason. Follow to walk the next field with me. The moment before history bends is always quieter than people expect. Sometimes it's a single lantern glow. Sometimes it's one rider hearing something no one else does. Follow for more untold moments from the war that shaped America. On a cold Virginia morning, a lone scout paused on a ridge above the Rappahannock. He wasn't famous, he wasn't a general, but he carried a message that could shift thousands of lives by nightfall. Behind him, the army marched through fog thick enough to hide whole regiments. Ahead of him, the river glimmered with the faint shapes of pickets, waiting for orders they didn't yet understand. This rider knew something few ever talked about. Sometimes the war turned not on battles, but on one person making it through the woods in time. Remember this. Many turning points were carried by men whose names never reached the books. Follow if you want more stories of the people history almost forgot.